The UK says it will walk away from talks with the European Union if no new trade deal is reached by October the 15th. In a statement, Prime Minister Boris Johnson said the UK would prosper even without a deal with the bloc, which is currently its biggest trading partner. The negotiators from both sides are due to meet in London tomorrow for their 8th round of discussions. If no new trade deal is reached in the coming weeks, the new year will bring tariffs and other trade barriers that would hurt both economies already hit hard by COVID-19. There are now also reports the UK is planning new legislation that would override the EU withdrawal agreement on key areas such as state aid and Northern Ireland's customs arrangements. Well, a short while ago, our correspondent Tig Enright in London gave me more details on Boris Johnson's comments.
This, he says, will be his final statement of these negotiations. And yes, throughout that statement, he talks about the prospects of no deal, or as he would call it, an Australia-type arrangement between the UK and the EU. Of course, Australia does not have a trade deal between the EU with the EU. And I think you can be struck by an air of calmness which is within the statement, a sense of readiness that he's trying to convey for the UK to leave without a deal. But there are also echoes of the EU's own diplomatic position, I think, in Boris Johnson's words, talking about an unwillingness to compromise on issues which are fundamental to his country's own interests, a readiness to walk away if that is what is absolutely necessary, but saying that the UK and the EU will always be friends and that the door is always open to ways to find sensible accommodations. But he has also set this timetable of October the 15th, trying to demonstrate control over these negotiations and saying if no agreement is reached before then, the UK will simply move on and accept that the deal cannot be struck. There are two ways, I think, of looking at this, Tokes. Either Boris Johnson means what he says and he is actually willing to walk away, or this is all part of the theatrics of negotiation, that London is ready to walk over the edge, or at least it will say so, but at the last minute it might yet step back. We have seen these kind of theatrics before, but you never know whether we've actually seen them for the last time.
Tig, at the same time, the UK is also threatening to break these legally binding commitments it's made in the withdrawal agreement regarding keeping an open border between Northern Ireland and Ireland. How's that going down?
Yeah, this report in the Financial Times will undoubtedly set alarm bells ringing in Dublin and in Brussels, actually here in London too, talking about the government here seeking to exploit what it sees as an ambiguity in the writing of the withdrawal agreement. The Financial Times saying that London is considering using sections of legislation due to be published here on Wednesday to eliminate the legal force of parts of the withdrawal agreement, including those related to state aid and Northern Ireland. Of course, I'm sure Brussels and Dublin see no such ambiguity. We will know more about the government's plans when that legislation is published later this week, but it does seem incredible that at a time when the UK is seeking to negotiate another international treaty with the EU, that it's demonstrating a willingness to walk back on one it signed less than a year ago. And certainly the opposition Labour Party sees it the very same way. Labour saying it is an act of immense bad faith, one that will be viewed dimly by future trading partners and allies around the world. Of course, those very trading partners that Boris Johnson is convinced he'll be able to forge new trading relationships with.
Our UK correspondent Tig Enright speaking to me there from London. On Twitter, the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said she trusted the British government to honour its commitments. She called the withdrawal agreement a prerequisite for any future partnership, adding that the protocol on Ireland and Northern Ireland is essential to protect peace and stability on the island and the integrity of the single market. Well, our EU correspondent Maeve McMahon told me many officials in Brussels are now worried about the UK's unpredictable behaviour.
Well, Tokes, there definitely is concern here in Brussels regarding the latest comments from the government of Boris Johnson. One MEP, Damien Chullis, tweeted out this morning that Brexit is not a game. What many sources, in fact, have been telling us today that they fear the government of Boris Johnson, that it's rather unpredictable. They actually, quite frankly, do not know what his end motive is. In fact, many say that they regret and lament the days of Theresa May. They believe when Theresa May was at the helm of the UK government, when she was heading them up, that this sort of arrangement wouldn't have happened. And there's fear as well that now, as we walk into the 8th round of talks taking place tomorrow in London, with the agenda set in stone here, coordinated and ready to go, that the first point of the agenda tomorrow will actually just have to be trust, because many here believe that trust has just broken down, and that's why there's been very little progress on the details, all the technical details of the talks over the last couple of months.
There are also reports in the UK that London wants to eject Michel Barnier, the EU's chief negotiator, from leading the talks, and that could perhaps be key to breaking the deadlock. What are you hearing about that?
Well, Michel Barnier himself spoke this morning to a French radio, France Inter, and said that that would not be the case. He said that he had the full backing of the EU 27 member states and, of course, of the European Parliament. Over the last couple of years, he's been travelling around all the capitals, listening to the interests of course, all the member states. And this morning on that radio, he said over the last 4 years, he got used to those kind of articles and comments that he said were written by people who didn't actually understand how the European side works. And he also said he had great concern about what the wishes of the UK negotiators were. He said that they just will not be able to access a market of 450 million people based on their rules. He said it will just have to be a level playing field. And he said, in fact, last week when speaking to an Irish organisation, the IAA, good luck to Britain, saying that the ball now is very much in the court of the EU and the EU will be driving these talks.
Our correspondent in Brussels, Meg McMahon there. Well, Neil Richmond is an Irish MP from the centre-right party Fine Gael and former chair of the Irish Senate's Brexit Committee. He told me the withdrawal agreement was binding and warned of grave consequences if it were to be breached.
What we have in place is a withdrawal agreement that has been ratified by this British government, by this British Parliament, as well as ourselves on the European side. It's taken for granted, and we have to remember why the withdrawal agreement is there. It's to ensure that threefold, the rights of citizens, the financial obligations, but crucially, the situation on the island of Ireland is not impacted by Brexit. And what we have agreed and accepted by the British government is done. It's an international treaty with obligations to international law. It can't be reopened or picked apart simply to meet domestic political demands in the UK. And the last thing we want to see, and what everyone urged, cautioning at the outset, is somehow the British government trying to play with peace in Ireland as some sort of negotiating gambit towards, be it fishing rights or state aid.
Okay. Well, you're key to that deal being thrashed out. Remind us, if you can, what the main sticking points were.
Well, I suppose it goes back to long before the referendum even took place. The situation on the island of Ireland was never discussed in England. We have a border of 499 kilometres with over 288 crossings between Ireland and Northern Ireland. If the UK are to crash out of the EU with no deal and with no arrangements, it means the frontier, the only land frontier between the EU and the UK, is on the island of Ireland. And let's not forget, for over 40 years, there was a vicious conflict on this island. Central to that was indeed the border. We saw so many customs officials and officers historically attacked, killed, murdered, blown up by terrorist forces. Therefore, the agreement was reached that there would be no border on the island of Ireland, regardless of how the trade talks go, regardless if there's a trade deal or no trade deal, that Northern Ireland would adhere to the rules of the European single market, and that additionally Northern Ireland would apply the EU's customs code. That was accepted. The British government agreed it. They campaigned on their own general election about it. But now we see reports in London saying that they're going to alter that in domestic legislation. That itself will be a breach of not just one international agreement, in the withdrawal agreement, but also the Good Friday Agreement, an international peace treaty of which the Irish and British governments are co-guarantors of, a peace treaty lodged with the United Nations.
Okay. Well, be that as it may, if the British government does go ahead and break these key parts of the agreement, which practically it could do because Boris Johnson does now have that majority in Parliament, what can the EU do?
Well, there's many tools open to the EU. First of all, the reputational damage to the UK would be devastating. How could any party beyond the EU, be it Japan, Canada, or any country, sign a deal with an entity that has broken a deal with its largest trading partner within a year of signing that deal? A deal that protects peace. Now, there are abilities for the EU if they want to go down. We very much hope they don't. But if the UK broke this agreement, they are liable in international law. And that opens up so many different enforcement tools to the EU. We never want to get near there. However, we want to make sure at this point, with 6 weeks left before any trade deal has to go before the European Parliament's Trade Committee, that we can focus on that, and the British government realise that they should leave the withdrawal agreement. It is not for reopening, and it certainly should not come back into play.
Neil Richmond, Irish MP from the centre-right party Fine Gael, speaking to me there.